Today marks the first day that the new October 2019 ban list is legal, and on the first day of most formats, we have no tournament data points for how the new format is going to shake up. In fact, for most of the first week, even going into the regionals, most people really don't know what the new format looks like, what decks are going to be the best, what decks are no longer good. But it's different this time because PPG Columbus decided that they were going to play under the new ban list, even though it wasn't legal in the official game yet. I should mention that this isn't a perfect data point. In fact, to characterize the quality of this data point, there were only about 260 players, I believe, who attended, and it seemed as though a lot of very high-profile team players did not attend the event. At best, I would characterize it as a tough regional. I would not weight the event as high as a YCS or a UDS, but it's a lot more than we normally have going into the first week. So we're going to take a look at the top 16, and even though it's not the best data point, I think if we interpret it a little bit, there are some interesting points that we can actually pull out of this. So first of all, the only deck to get more than 2 tops in the top 16 is ORCUST. It came in a couple different flavors. There was just sort of pure, some played danger. I believe a Lunalight even topped. I think Lunalight ORCUST is definitely not dead at all, pretty much entirely because of dangers. Dangers allow you to dig through your deck to find ORCUST Nightmare, Harpour, send them to the graveyard, or they can allow you to make Curious, which just sends the ORCUST to the graveyard. As many people who looked at the OCG would anticipate, the banning of Mermaid by no means kills the deck, and in some ways, really all it did was get rid of Cyber Dragon ORCUST. I think ORCUST should be the best deck this format, barring any major innovations, or just honestly maybe a deck from last format was underrated and we're going to find out that maybe it was the best deck all along. Assuming neither of those scenarios are true, I think ORCUST will be the best deck this format. Also curious, we have a lot of trap decks actually topping this event. 2 Subterror, 2 True Draco, an Altergeist, a Paleozoic. So I think this format is going to be marked by an increased number of trap decks that are actually going to be making top cut at events. A lot of people were hyping up Guru Control, at the beginning of last format actually. A lot of decks had their power cut, and people thought that Guru Control was going to have its big breakout. Finally, the format is weak enough that a control deck such as Guru Control can really do its thing. It can bully around other decks, control their board states a lot better. They aren't going to have as many extenders to play through Guru Control's boards, and that just didn't really pan out. That wasn't the case. Altergeist had a little bit of success, topped a couple YCSs. It was just like 1 top here and there. Paleozoic we didn't see at all. True Draco. So here's the deal with True Draco. It does well at the beginning of every format. The first week or two, every budget player is playing True Draco. Everyone's hyping up the deck. The deck really just isn't that good, especially going first versions of the deck. Just, I think, really aren't that good, even though that's what everyone plays. So, of course, True Draco, good at the beginning of the format, always dies off, and we'll come back to that in a second. But I do think, finally, we could be seeing the chance for control decks to come back into the game a little bit. A lot of them didn't have very good striker matchups. Sky Strikers just out-resourced them. And there weren't as many choke points for those control decks to make high-value trades. So we might finally see them come in against ORCUST and Thunder. Coming back to True Draco, even though there were 2 of them that topped this event, I would not expect that to be a trend going forward. Again, I think True Draco gets really hyped at the beginning of every format, and then everyone realizes it's really not that good, and then it goes away. So I think the focus is going to be mostly on Subterror / Guru Control and Altergeist. I don't think we're going to see more Paleozoic. I'm actually a fan of the deck, and I think it's a lot better than most people give it credit for. And I wouldn't be surprised to actually see it surprise top a YCS at some point in the next year. But I do think Altergeist and Guru Control offer a little bit more. They're slightly more modern decks. They have really pivotal cards like Multi-Faker and Subterra Guru that they can really play around. Those are extremely impactful cards. Paleozoics, of course, have the benefit of being able to make a very powerful extra deck monster like Totally Awesome. But as good as Swap Frog is, it just doesn't feel like they have that main deck monster that's really the X factor for the deck. And so I really take points away from it in that regard. Something odd about this top cut also, but I think can kind of be explained. Thunder Dragon and Salamangreat only got one top each. They didn't get hit on the last ban list, and they were pretty decent at the end of last format. I think they are decks that are definitely better in the hands of very skilled players, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't really know this for sure, but it didn't seem like from the names in the pairings that there were that many high-profile players. So I think in general this wasn't as high skill of an event as, say, a YCS. Also, Salamangreat is generally going to have lower representation. I don't think it's a very sexy deck to play. It's actually pretty expensive. You need Phantasme, Cynet Mining, Infinite Impermanence. It doesn't have a very high ceiling. So, you know, budget players aren't playing it anymore, really. At least the full power version or anything close to it. And it's just, it doesn't have the same appeal to the set 5 pass players, you know, people who like Guru Control and Altergeist. But it's also not a full-on combo deck like Thunder Dragon or ORCUST. So it's just sort of, I can't imagine that it's super popular among good players. But regardless, I think especially once we get into larger events like YCSs, we're going to see very skilled players who know that they can perform with the deck, actually pick it up and play it. So I fully expect to see more Salamangreat, you know, say YCS London, which is coming up. Thunder Dragon, again, I think it's really good in the hands of skilled players, and in a format where there's sort of an oddly high number of control decks. I do expect there, again, to be a decent number going forward, but maybe a little more in this event than there might be at future events. Seems like a bad environment for Thunder Dragon, but we also may see this continue. Maybe Thunder Dragon only picks up a couple tops here and there. One of its best matchups was Sky Striker because Colossus shut down so many of their decks. So maybe it was actually overperforming a little bit last format off the back of having a good Sky Striker matchup. I'm not really sure on that one. It can kind of go either way. A trend I expect to continue, a couple, is that there were no Sky Strikers that topped and no Pendulum Magicians, or any Pendulums at all. No Endymion, no Zephyra, no nothing. Pendulums weren't especially good last format. They were kind of okay. I still think they have some troublesome matchups this format. I think ORCUST is not particularly great for them. I think they're going to struggle against Thunder Dragon. They struggle against Salamangreat. Provided Salamangreat gets to go first. I don't really like their matchup into Guru Control. I don't like their Altergeist matchup. Really, they just suck at going second. And when you are a deck that is fully dependent on going first, that's just not going to cut it this format. At least decks like Altergeist can set a bunch of cards, you know, with a strike and try to kind of cheese break your board. But Pendulum Magicians just don't have the ability to do that. They're also extremely vulnerable to cards like Imperial Order. I think we'll still see some Lunalight ORCUST, especially now that people see that it still works. People are going to still play it. If you have a decent opening hand, you can do the Curious Griffin play to set Imperial Order. I think that's really going to harsh on Pendulum's buzz for pretty much the entire format. So I would not expect to see them really too much. They'll probably top at some regionals, but at the YCS level, I'm still not sure they quite cut it. Sky Strikers, the Widow Anchor limit hit them a lot harder than some people thought they would. They just aren't really that great at breaking boards anymore. Their ORCUST matchup is probably you know, in my mind, probably a lot more difficult. I haven't play tested it too much in the new format, but just sort of on a theory level, that seems like a huge pain. And Thunder Dragon still exists, and Pure Thunder Dragon should, I think, probably trend upwards. And the better Sky Striker is, the more Thunder Dragon there's likely to be. So there's sort of that counterbalance in the format, and I would expect them to maybe top regionals every once in a while, and that's the extent of their ability. Now we also have some kind of interesting rogue decks here. Mech Knight going second, Infernoid, and Shaddoll Dinosaur. So these are sort of the meta call going second decks. Mech Knight I think is actually legit. The player that topped with it, I believe his name is Shannon Long, also topped YCS recently with Mech Knight. So this may be a case of like Calvin, Tahan, and ABC, where it's one player that's really driving the premier level tops with the deck, and just no other players really doing anything with it. Obviously that's dependent on if other high-level players see Mech Knight, they see value in it, you know, they want to invest the time. Otherwise, we could just see Shannon Long continuing to top a bunch with the deck, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's pretty much just dependent on who wants to pick up the deck. Going second, Infernoid is really interesting. It still kind of plays around Void Feast and Dark Lair, but unlike the builds we've seen previously, which were very trap heavy, they played Trap Trick, they played a lot of Artifact Sanctum, Heavy Storm Duster, those kinds of cards. This one was looking to break boards. I think it's a really good meta call because Infernoids can banish ORCUST cards from the graveyard, and then they contribute their stuff on the field with Dark Lair. Really, I think it's a perfect matchup for that deck. I don't know if that's enough to carry Infernoids in the meta. There are going to be other non-ORCUST matchups, which the deck is going to not be very good into. So this might be sort of a flash in a pan. You know, there's a lot of ORCUST at this event because people weren't really sure what was going to be good other than ORCUST. So it just might have not good enough of a matchup spread for the rest of the format. And Shaddoll Dinosaur, I think it's cute. It's kind of unexpected. They finally have the 3 Miscellaneousaurus back. I don't really like the ceiling of the deck that much. I think its ability to break boards is a little lackluster for my taste. It's fine. It's going to be a good rogue deck this format. It's not too horribly expensive, but I really wouldn't expect to see it at the YCS or UDS level, or really that commonly at regionals. So that wraps up kind of the top 16 and sort of how I interpret it, sort of what is there, and almost just as importantly, what isn't there. So ORCUST, probably still the best deck. I'd expect to see a lot more Salamangreat and Thunder Dragon as we get further into the format, especially at events where there are more skilled players who are looking to purely perform well, and they're confident on those decks. They will play them. I think we'll still see a lot of trap decks like Subterror, True Draco, Altergeist, Paleo, but I think that it's going to be condensed down more into just Altergeist and Subterror. True Draco will probably die off as the format goes on, and Paleo is just probably not quite as strong as them. Mech Knight's a real deck, but it's pretty much restricted to one player who's going to be terrorizing YCSs with it unless other good players decide to pick it up. And you know, Infernoid's a good meta call, but the rest of it's pretty much just rogue stuff that's going to be able to top at this sort of maybe slightly tougher than normal regional level, but not at the YCS level. So that's the video. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this format. I think Yu-Gi-Oh's been a little bit stale lately, so maybe this will shake it up a little bit. If you guys have any decks that you think are sleepers in this format, or, you know, am I underrating True Draco? Any sort of thoughts like that, I'd really like to hear, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.